Penguin fans need to sell a home or buy one? Go with the top producing team in the nation, the Amy Wenger team with eXp Realty. Serving Northeast Ohio for 28 years, experience real estate that achieves your goals and exceeds your expectations. Call today and tell them you subscribe to the Penguin Nation Fans podcast, and they will ensure that you are treated like family. Call 330-681-6090 or visit amysguarantee.com. Go Gwins. All right, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Penguin Nation Fans podcast. As always, I am your host, Gino Leone. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at YTown Nation, and don't forget to check out my written work over on Red Shirt Sports. Today, I will be starting my Projecting the Starting 22 series for the YSU football team, where I go through each position group on the roster and project the starting lineup before fall camp ramps up here. A couple of quick announcements here, as many of you probably are already aware of. I have taken an opportunity to write for Florida State on Last Word on College Sports. I'm super excited to get that opportunity. If I took an opportunity like that, I wanted to cover a proud, rich, historic program like that. So I'm excited about that. With that, it's going to be difficult to be as consistent with my posting schedule, how many episodes I record, all of that stuff. But I'm going to try my best to stay consistent. And then obviously, right, once we get into the season, I'll try to ramp up my coverage as much as I can and keep giving you guys the content, because YSU, again, that's still my team. That's the team we're all rooting for, and it's going to be an exciting year for the Penguins. So today we're focusing on the defensive line, and this is honestly one of the more important position groups heading into 2026. We saw significant improvement when we talk about that jump from 2024 to 2025. In 2024, there was a serious deficiency on that defensive front. We just really didn't have the guys in there that were up to par with the standards of the Missouri Valley Football Conference, and we got pushed around. The defense was really bad that season. We gave up, I think, 73 points against Pitt, 63 against South Dakota State. But a lot of that had to do with the front seven getting absolutely demolished for large portions of the game. In 2025, I thought Coach Ray Hunter, even Coach John Hanline, they did an excellent job of emphasizing being physical on that front line. We brought in some big-time transfer additions. You look at a guy like Colin Vaughn, Cameron Cunningham, Thomas Jolly. I mean, they went 3 for 3 with their big-time evaluations, and all of those guys could have started on any given day of the week. So overall, in terms of improvement from 2024 to 2025, that's sort of what set the stage for what could be the best defensive line we have had under Doug Phillips. Now, we did have a good statistical defensive front in 2023 when we made the playoffs for the first times under Doug Phillips. But I thought that defensive line, honestly, when compared to last season's at least showed up in some big-time games. I feel like in 2023, when we needed our defensive line outside of that Southern Illinois upset we had when Southern Illinois came into the town as the number 5 team and our defensive line terrorized them. Outside of that, I felt like last season our defensive line rose up in some big-time games, which you couldn't say about the 2023 unit. And again, that all sets the stage for this season. Now, it's going to be different, right? Ryan Riemedio, if you guys went to the spring game, if you guys have been tracking this team, you know that Coach Riemedio is going to bring a new defensive philosophy. We're going to start in that 3-4 scheme. I'm sort of interested to see how much we move between 3-man fronts and 4-man fronts. I think the flexibility is there with a player like Mike Wells at that outside linebacker, defensive end hybrid position. So you basically get an extra linebacker and an extra defensive lineman on the field at the same time with him. So I'm not too concerned about that, but there is always a possibility when you're running a 3-4 scheme that you're going to give up some size there on that front line, and you're going to be asking some of your big physical defensive linemen, defensive tackles to eat double teams. But we'll see how this pans out. I'm super excited. There's a lot of teams in the world of college football and even in the NFL that run 3-4 schemes and are very successful. I believe the Denver Broncos last season are a great example at the NFL level. They had one of the better defenses in the NFL running that 3-4 scheme, pretty effective. There's obviously going to be some differences with what Coach Riemedio wants to get done, but I'm super excited about this defensive line group as I'm going to get into the starting lineup. There's a lot of depth here, and what I like about Coach Riemedio is that he has experience coaching at all three levels of the defense, and he coached an elite Mercyhurst defensive line in 2019. I also like the fact that we were able to retain defensive line coach Ray Hunter. I'm not sure if Coach Hunter was looking for other opportunities, but he did an excellent job of sort of overseeing that flip from 2024 to 2025. And I think with Coach Riemedio, that head coaching background, he's going to be willing to collaborate with his position group coaches. And I like that we have some sort of stability there on that front line with Coach Ray Hunter back. And again, this new 3-4 scheme is gonna take some time to adjust to. It wouldn't surprise me if it takes us 3 to 4 weeks to gel together and get guys playing the way we want them to play. But some of the transfers we brought in on the defensive line, combined with some of the young talent we have, the defensive line really has the potential to be one of the deepest position groups on the roster. So a reminder as we dive into the starting lineup, this is a 3-4 defensive scheme, so that's what that's based on. Mike Wells last season sort of played more of a defensive end role, more so than an outside linebacker. He's going to have a tremendous amount of freedom, so he's not technically a defensive lineman, but he's that hybrid player that's going to be a really big part. I think you could argue he's the most important part of next season's defense. So let's start at the defensive end spot. Jordan Pritchard-Sewell transfers in from Holy Cross. He's one of the most intriguing additions this offseason. He has a super fast get off. He reads when the center is going to snap the ball so well, and he attacks the ball. He has a very deep collection of pass rush moves. Honestly, just based on covering this team the last couple of years and watching the film on some of the transfer guys we've been able to get, this might be one of the best defensive linemen Doug Phillips has ever had. I mean, he is super disruptive in his pass rushing abilities. I talked about that explosive first step. Like, he knows before the center even knows when the ball is going to be snapped, and his speed you can't deny. And he looked good throughout the spring against All-American left tackle Desmond Lee, so that's an encouraging sign for him. I would honestly be shocked if he does not start in week 1. This is a guy that I am super high on, and it wouldn't surprise me at all to see him as an all MVFC selection when it's all said and done. He's got to stay healthy. That hasn't seemed to be an issue yet throughout his career, his collegiate career. I'm super excited for what he offers there in this 3-4 scheme. Thomas Jolly at defensive tackle. I've talked about Thomas Jolly a lot on this podcast. I thought when he played those games last season, I think the first 3 games of the season, he was our best defensive tackle. He just created so much disruption, so much penetration. It's one of those offseason additions that we needed to hit last year, and we did with him. We did emphatically, and I'm super pumped to see what he does because he's so good at allowing his teammates to make plays. He's not necessarily always going to make the tackle, but he blows up the middle of the defense or middle of the offensive line, and that allows his teammates to make plays. The big question for him is healthy, right? He suffered that season-ending injury last fall. Can he be healthy? Again, if he's healthy, if he has rehabbed well, and he gets back into his groove, I think he could have a monster campaign, and I'm super high on what his potential could look like with a full season of play at Youngstown State. And then rounding out the starting lineup, again, 3-4 scheme, defensive end Ebony Curry Jr. He started and played 8 games last season. I thought, reflecting back on last season, he was one of our most improved players when you compare to what he put on tape in 2024. Again, he sort of got thrown into the fire in 2024 because that defensive line was so bad that we had to play some of our younger guys that probably wouldn't have played if we had the right guys in there. But he sort of got thrown into the fire. Did okay for a young guy, but would have liked to see more. But he took a significant step in 2025 and looked like, outside of Mike Wells, he was probably our best pure pass rusher. His ceiling super high. The big thing for him is health. He missed some games last fall with injuries. He missed some time this spring with injuries. We'll need him to be healthy. Both Jolly and Curry need to be healthy for this defensive line to live up to its potential. So that's the projected starting lineup: Pritchard-Sewell, Jolly, and then Ebony Curry Jr. There's a lot of upside here, and I think the balance that this starting lineup would strike with pass rushing abilities, with run stopping abilities, I think that would be tough to match up with if I'm an opposing team. Really any opponent that YSU faces, that's not an easy defensive line to match up against. All right, now the real depth and the real talent of this position group is shown as you move down the roster. So this second team lineup, like if you told me that this was our starting lineup heading into week 1, I would not be upset at all. This is a super talented second tier lineup. And it's sort of crazy. Again, I'm probably gonna talk about this when we get into our offensive line preview. It's sort of insane to think about the amount of depth that YSU has been able to establish on both lines of scrimmage. I'm especially impressed with the depth that we have been able to build on the defensive line, right? Offensive line, we've sort of known that's been a staple of Doug Phillips. He's done an excellent job of hiring the right coaches there, bringing in the right talent, and really building those layers of depth. But defensive line, I thought it was going to take a couple of seasons for us to flip this thing around, but it took one off season of nailing our portal additions, and here we are with this might be one of our deepest position groups on the roster, and you need that, again, in a physical conference like the Missouri Valley. Look at the Dakota schools. Look at the teams that are successful in the playoffs. They are big in the trenches. I think we saw that last season with Illinois State, although Illinois State didn't necessarily perform super well in the Missouri Valley. They had a good season, don't get me wrong, but they weren't playing at an elite level. That physicality that they saw on a week-to-week basis got them ready for the playoffs. And when they got in the playoffs, they were ready to roll after beating North Dakota State, right? UC Davis couldn't handle their physicality. Villanova couldn't handle that physicality. So the Missouri Valley is really a grind, and you need this depth. And I think YSU has done an excellent job over these last 2 off seasons of building and establishing this depth that we need. But the second team lineup here, defensive end Connor Johansson, one of the most improved players on the roster last season. He was sort of in a similar situation as Ebony Curry Jr., where he took a massive leap from 2024 to 2025. He didn't play as much in 2024 as Ebony Curry Jr., but still, regardless, he looks significantly better in that progression as a sophomore last season. He's lengthy at 6'4", continues to develop as a pass rusher. He has that flexibility where he can move around into the defensive tackle role, move him back out at defensive end because of his length and the fact that he's not just a run stuffer. He could challenge for a starting role during camp, but something tells me he's not going to earn that role just because, I mean, you look, the fact that Ebony Curry Jr. was hurt, Thomas Jolly was hurt during the spring. Those two didn't play in the spring game, and Johansson still didn't start. I'm not so sure if he's going to be able to push a guy like Jordan Pritchard-Sewell or even Ebony Curry Jr. I guess it depends what Ebony Curry Jr., what Thomas Jolly look like post-injury. But regardless, Johansson has the production to make a massive step next season. He had 22 tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks, and 2 quarterback hurries last fall for us. I'm excited to see what he does, and this is a super high level depth piece to have if you're YSU. Devon Perkins anchoring the second team defensive tackle role. He started the spring game. This is his third season in the program. We'll see if he's able to have a sophomore type jump similar to Ebony Curry Jr. and Connor Johansson. It's a crucial developmental year. He has a lot of size. He's very physical. A big player. He got some action for us last season when we suffered some injuries at defensive tackle. We'll see with him, right? The thing that has started to become a trend in a Doug Phillips program is that these year 3 guys really take a big step forward, as I just talked about with Curry and Johansson. And it seems like with a guy like Perkins, who has a talented high school resume, who started to get more action last season, it would just make sense from a natural progression standpoint to see him play more next season and to see him be more disruptive as a run defender, because that's what he's going to be. He's going to be a run defender. He's a space clogger. We'll have to see what he looks like, but again, a really good second-tier option to have here. And then rounding out this second-team lineup is Conlan Green. This is the Temple transfer. This is another portal addition that I think YSU absolutely nailed. He opened the spring game with the first-team defense. He sort of fell down the lineup as the game went on. He's a massive frame, physical presence. I think he's listed at 285 on the YSU roster. I've seen him in person. He looks like he's 300 plus, sort of similar to Cameron Cunningham. There's some distinct differences in how those two play, but Green is a strong run defender, and that's why we have him here. He could push for first team reps too. Let's not deny the fact that he started that spring game. Again, it depends on what guys look like post injury. And this is another really good addition by this YSU coaching staff. They drilled the 2 defensive lineman additions they had this offseason, Conlan Green and then Jordan Pritchard-Sewell, who I'm super excited to get in to watch in person here at YSU. Let's go now to the third team and what this lineup looks like. Defensive end, I have Ajaga. He's a reliable rotational contributor. I thought last season, as the year progressed, Ajaga got better and better and better, and he had a really good performance against North Dakota State when some of our key players went down with injuries. Now, the issue for him is, at the beginning of the offseason, this is a guy that was probably at the very least in the second team lineup. But with all the new faces we've added with Conlan Green, with Jordan Pritchard-Sewell, he sort of trickled down the lineup. And on top of that, you're running a 3-4 scheme. And there's just not going to be as many defensive linemen that can do what Mike Wells can do. The backup for Mike Wells is Solomon Farrell. So for Ajaga, he's trickling down the lineup, and he's a talented player. He is. And the fact that he is on our third team lineup, for some teams, this kid's probably starting. But we're at YSU where the depth and the layers have been able to be established here on the defensive line. This is a good guy to have. I would expect him to rotate in certain situations in the game. Outside of that, I'm not so sure. I think it's going to be tough for him to compete for starting reps. Second team, I could see him pushing for second team reps. This is a competitive group. The YSU coaching staff is not afraid of competition. You can lose your job on any given day at practice if you don't show up. So this is a sort of an under the radar guy that I'm excited about. And I'm glad he stayed at YSU. A lot of guys that are in a similar position to him might have transferred out. The loyalty and the continuity is really showing through this offseason with the YSU team. Defensive tackle, I got Balil Tucker. He's a redshirt freshman. He worked with the second team during the spring. It looks to me like he added some size. He was a really big freshman coming in, a super big frame. He looked like a Division I player out there on the field. Some guys, it takes time for them. It takes them 2 to 3 years at least to build the strength that they need to get on the field. Tucker, in his second season, already looks like he could go out there and start for us. He's a really big body type. He's a member of that highly regarded 2025 recruiting class that ranked super high on 247 Sports. This is sort of a dark horse to climb the depth chart. I mean, I think honestly, from what I've seen on tape from him, both in high school and the limited action, he played a lot of snaps for us last season against Yale. I think this is a guy that could really push Perkins for that second team role. And there's a lot of competition there. And this is a guy that I think could take a massive step forward and sort of back up the loaded high school resume that he has. And then defensive end Deshaun Kirby rounds out this third team lineup. Another super talented young player. He appeared in 4 games as a true freshman for us in 2025. He had second team reps during the spring. Highly productive high school player at East Liverpool. And I mean, really good production at East Liverpool. Just insane numbers in terms of tackles for loss and sacks. Significant upside. I thought when he went in last season, he made an immediate impact for us. And again, if these guys aren't rehabbing the right way, if they're not, if they lose some of their motivation, man, you could lose your job. Kirby, Tucker, Ajaga. I mean, these guys are talented. This is the third team lineup, and there are guys that are more than capable of stepping in and starting for YSU. So last person, honorable mention here. I didn't want to leave him out because he sort of caught lightning in a bottle last season this was a guy that nobody, and no disrespect to this young man because he clearly proved everybody wrong, but Andrew Jackson Dunaway, he looked outstanding as a pass rusher when he played last season. He came in against North Dakota State and made a couple of massive plays that swung the momentum back in our favor. His pass rushing abilities really stood out to me. This is a guy that I'm interested to see where he lands in this rotation. I'm not sure I don't think he could start, but I definitely think he can make a push for second team reps. He missed spring practice with an injury. That's the only holdup here. And again, YSU brought in a lot of talent on this defensive line, but Andrew Jackson Dunaway, not a guy you want to overlook. This is a super talented defensive line, and the depth here is remarkable to me. So this is probably one of the deepest defensive line groups YSU has had in recent years. I think preseason, it's sort of tough to gauge how this defensive line stacks up compared to previous defensive lines we've had here under Doug Phillips. But I mean, if you're talking about natural progression, what we saw on film last season, the fact that we hired a new defensive coordinator, we think this is the guy to get our defense right. I mean, I think you could make the argument that this is Doug Phillips' best defensive line. And I think this could be a defensive line that pushes into that next tier of the FCS in terms of tackles for loss, in sacks, and just being overall disruptive. There's plenty of options to go to here. I think the ceiling here is among the better defensive lines in the Missouri Valley, probably a top 3. I still have to get into some of the more of the teams here in the conference, but if this unit reaches its potential, which we're going to need it to do, this could be a major reason YSU contends for a conference title and playoff run. It starts in the trenches. When I do my evaluations, I don't care what team you are. To me, its games are still won and lost in the trenches. You have to have an offensive line, you have to have a defensive line, and you need a quarterback. So far at this point in the offseason, YSU has that. Bo Brungard, we know what he's capable of. The entire starting offensive line is back. We know what their upside looks like. Defensive line depth is there. Probably the most talented defensive line, if not one of the most talented defensive lines we have had under Doug Phillips. Those are the big 3 things. Everything else you can fill. Everything else you can replace, but you need those 3 core positions to be solidified, and that's what's been impressive about this offseason is that YSU seems to have a firm grasp of what it takes to make a deep run in the playoff. Again, this is all talk, right? This is all preseason speculation. I feel like I've been having this conversation for a long time about, this is a team that could actually get YSU back to the promised land. This is a team that can actually take YSU to a national championship. It doesn't really matter what we think until we put something on the field, but I'm excited. The preseason buzz is real, and it's time for YSU to keep elevating, to keep grinding through summer workouts. Summer workouts is one of the more underrated parts of the offseason. It's one of the more crucial parts of the offseason. You've got to go to war every single day and keep making each other better, and I think YSU, we're going to see that with an experienced coaching staff and an experienced team. I think that's going to pay off when the season comes. So that's going to do it for this edition of the Penguin Nation Fans Podcast. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Make sure to leave the show a 5-star review and continue to support the podcast on social media. For now, I'm Gina Leone, and as always, go Gwins.